Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we are going to watch about the how to talk about your strengths and weaknesses. You are ready to rock your job interview. They ask if you have strengths and weaknesses. Being asked to assess the best and worst parts of yourself can be intimidating. You are being asked a profound question about who you are as a person. That is not what they are asking you. They want to know if you are a good fit for the job. It is possible to nail the interview without too much stress by giving specific answers. Method 1. How do I figure out my strengths and weaknesses? First is make a list of the skills you have. Come up with knowledge-based skills such as computer skills and degrees. Add some transferable skills that you picked up from other jobs such as meeting deadlines and working with other people. Then, round it out with some of your own unique personality traits like punctuality and flexibility. For example, computer training that you learned at school and from your previous work experience, along with your ability to work under pressure, could be great points to make for an IT position. Step 2. Translate these skills into strengths that relate to the job you're applying for. Your interviewer likely wants to know if your strengths align with the needs of the company and what the job entails. They may also want to know how well you'll interact with your coworkers and management. Use that info to help craft your answers. For instance, if you're applying for a sales position, you could mention things like your personal skills and communication abilities, while skills like multitasking or software knowledge may not be as pertinent. Finally, pick out weaknesses that don't relate to the job. Think about some things you struggle with, like impatience, punctuality, or lack of confidence. Be honest about yourself but choose things that aren't really a concern and won't jeopardize your ability to get the job. For instance, if you're applying for a position as a data analyst, you could say that you're naturally shy and sometimes struggle with standing up for yourself. Avoid mentioning things like having trouble staying focused, which could turn off interviewers. Method 2. What are examples of strengths? First is a good work ethic is always a good answer. Just about every employer wants to hire somebody who works hard and is productive. Bring up your work ethic, productivity, and energy as strengths that you can bring to the company if they hire you. For instance, you can say something like, "When I start a task, I have to make sure it gets finished properly or it'll bug me the rest of the day." Step 2. Talk about your leadership skills and how you're a team player. You'll likely be working with other people as well as your manager. Talking about your ability to get along and work well with others is always a good idea in a job interview. If you're naturally good at leading or delegating tasks, that's also a great skill to bring up. Finally, use the job posting as a guide to help you come up with examples. Read through the job posting to see what the company is looking for. Then, come up with 3 to 5 options that match your personality and skills. That way, your answers will fit what the interviewer is actually looking for. For instance, if the job posting says that they're looking for a qualified candidate for a fast-paced position, you could choose strengths like your education, your experience, your punctuality, and your ability to work under pressure. Technical skills like writing or using specific computer programs are a solid option to include as well. Method 3. What are examples of weaknesses? First is go with personality traits that don't affect your job performance. Being too harsh on yourself or always trying to please everyone is a weakness that doesn't actually impact your ability to do the job. It's a safe bet to focus on a personal weakness. It demonstrates your ability to assess yourself without potentially ruining your chances at landing the job. For instance, saying something that doesn't really matter for the potential job, like, "Sometimes I can be really hard on myself. It's tough for me to let go of the mistakes that I make." Step 2. Choose weaknesses you've overcome as well. It's a useful strategy to avoid focusing on current weaknesses you have and at the same time demonstrating that you've made improvements and worked on your weaknesses. Talk about how they affected your performance and what you did to overcome them. For example, you could say something like, "I used to have issues keeping everything organized. But then I started using digital calendars and organizational tools to help stay on top of everything." Finally, avoid choosing laziness or dishonesty as a weakness. Examples such as being unreliable, untrustworthy, or not being a team player can make it difficult for you to land the job. These are traits that could really impact how your interviewer views you. Do your best to steer clear of any super negative examples like these. Method 4. How do you answer? Tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. First is practice your answers ahead of time so you know what to say. It's almost a guarantee that you'll get this question, or something like it, in a job interview. Think about your answers ahead of time. Write out a script you can rehearse. Even if you aren't asked the question specifically, you'll be able to spit out your prepared answers to show where you're strong and where you're trying to make improvements. Create a list of talking points you can use to help you prepare. Step 2. Talk about your weaknesses first so you end on a strong note. If you're given the option, always talk about the negative stuff first. That way, you'll be able to get it out of the way and focus on what skills and talents you do bring to the table. You may be asked about your strengths and weaknesses separately. Step 3. Mention being unfamiliar with the latest technology if you are. If you're applying for a job where you'll be using new software and technology that you haven't really worked with before, be upfront about it. Use it as an example of a weakness that you can overcome by learning how to use them. It's also a safe bet because most employers won't expect you to know exactly how to do everything. On the first day, you could say something like, "I haven't used the specific programs you guys use. But if they're anything like the ones I've worked with before, I'm sure I can pick it up quickly." Step 4. Avoid general statements so you seem more genuine. Your interviewer wants to know whether you're knowledgeable enough and honest enough to really dig down and reflect on your weaknesses. Basic, general statements like, "I work too hard," or "I'm a perfectionist," can come across as pandering and disingenuous. Level with your interviewer and give them honest answers. Step 5. Use specific examples to illustrate your strengths and weaknesses. For each of the strengths and weaknesses that you mention, try not to gloss over them or give simple, one-word answers. It can send a bad signal to an interviewer. Instead, mention the trait and then expand on your answers by giving scenarios to add context. That way, you can make your weaknesses look better and your strengths look even stronger. For instance, for a weakness like time management, you could say something like, "I can sometimes lose track of time. Like if I get too focused on finishing a project I won't even realize it's been an hour." Quote. For a strength like being a team player, you could add an example like, "So, for a project with multiple people, I know that finding the best role for each person can make it smoother. And I'm willing to take on the part of the job that other people don't want to do." Finally, answer the question confidently to impress your interviewer. Your interviewer wants to know how you respond more than anything. Sure, your answers can provide really useful insight. For instance, if you say you aren't good with numbers in an interview for an accounting position, it might not go over well. But the truth is, the interviewer wants to know what you see as your strengths and weaknesses as well as how you deal with answering a challenging question. Method 5. What are examples of employee strengths and weaknesses? First is being overly critical or unfamiliar with the job is common. At the end of the day, you need to give the interviewer genuine answers about your own personal weaknesses. Choosing traits such as being overly critical or eager to please won't really hurt your chances at getting the job, but they'll show that you're able to analyze yourself. Additionally, you're often not expected to know how to do everything on the first day. So admitting that you're unfamiliar with some of your tasks is an honest and safe answer. For instance, saying, "I can sometimes come off as overly eager," is a better example than, "I have trouble getting to work on time." Quote, "It's perfectly fine to say something like, 'I've never used the programs you use before, but I'm sure I can learn it.'" Finally, choose strengths related to the specific job. Things like being analytical, punctual, good at communicating, collaboration skills, and leadership ability are usually safe choices. But go with ones that actually relate to you so you don't come off as disingenuous. And think of some of your own that make sense for the job. For example, you could talk about your leadership skills and ability to resolve conflicts if you're trying to land a job as an office manager because they make sense for that role. We hope it is useful to you. Please subscribe to our channel.